Hey all, good evening. Welcome to Meteorology Lab once again. Don't have any drone footage, so we're going to be using some satellite until we get a substitute in there. And we'll figure out something this week, what to do with that. So let's head into the charts. There's GR level 2 showing a solitary tornado warning just southeast of Des Moines. So we'll zoom in on that cell. And this is part of a large linear convective system. Switch over to the storm relative velocity there. And don't see too much going on right now. If we back that up, though, I'm sure we were seeing a kind of a localized spin up out in that area. So probably earlier we had something going on in that region right there. So that's going to be around the Pleasantville, Otley area of Iowa. And then taking a look down the line, just looks like a lot of linear stuff, lots of multi-cells all the way down to the Topeka area. And what have we seen so far today? Let's take a look at the SPC storm reports. We've had a couple of tornado touchdowns around the Des Moines area, and one little spot there this morning from Pontotoc County. 2 unoccupied trailer homes destroyed in that area. Let's see what things looked like yesterday. A little bit more severe coverage back then, but it looks like one little corridor right there from about Altus down to the Oklahoma City area. And let's see what happened there. Yeah, right after we signed off, we got a little spin up going on that storm that was moving into Norman. So it moved across the city, and then on the other side, we had a weak tornado that's spun up out there, and you could see on spectrum width the boundary was wrapping up with that. It didn't last more than about 10 minutes there. And then other than that, some tornadoes up the I-35 area up to Kansas City, and a few just west of Springfield and Branson. This evening it is a lot quieter. There's what's left of our linear boundary through Arkansas, and not much going on down there in Texas, even though we do have a southerly flow and the Gulf is open. Let's take a look at the instability, see what we got going on today. We'll look at the surface-based cape there, and it does look a little bit on the weak side. Capes are a lot higher down in the hill country there. But overall, around the periphery and up the dry line, we're looking at values of about 1,000 to 1,500 there. You can see some pretty good dry line convergence out there in Oklahoma. That flow coming together, and let's check that out on the surface plots. So it does look like we probably got that front emerging into Texas somewhere. So usually when I try to figure out whether it's a dry line or a front, I'll take a look at the thermal axis. And we've got a couple of 84, 85 readings right there west of Fort Worth, and a couple of others in this area. And usually I'm looking for the front to be kind of on maybe the west side of that. Another product we can use there is we can look at the deformation on the SPC experimental mesoanalysis site. Let's see what that shows. I'll take a look at the velocity tensor magnitude, see what we got going on out there in West Texas from that site. Oh, there it goes, finally. Looks like a small boundary from about Wichita Falls to about Brady. So there could be something going on in that region. You can definitely make out the Canadian front coming south, starting to enter the northern tier counties of the Texas Panhandle. And let's check out the theta. So we've actually got some pretty warm air out to the west. So this is either post-dry line air, or this is considered modified and warmed Pacific air. See that 309? That's going to be, if we convert that potential temperature, that's going to be 27, 37, 36. That's going to be about 98 degrees Fahrenheit, reduced down to 1,000 millibar level. So that is definitely some warm air in that region. And then looking further to the west, let me pull up the national sector. See if we can get a little bit more definition on that Pacific air mass. And probably got a little bit of a cooler reading up there in the Four Corners area, so could be something like that going on. But I think ultimately we're going to have to kind of look back on continuity and look at the thermal chart here. This is the thickness and isobars. And I do think we've got that weak front coming into West Texas there. So I think there is a little bit of support for a front in West Texas, maybe through that area right there. And then up to the north around Chicago and the Quad Cities, definite warm front there. So the boundaries, they're very weak and subtle. And in fact, I would say things are defined by high pressure. So here's the big Bermuda high there, starting to take shape. This is pretty early in the season for the Bermuda high, but it is kind of poking into the southeast U.S. there and giving us that flow of Gulf moisture coming up there into Texas. And then out west, the other high, there it is right there, kind of a big triangle along the California coast. And that's driving some cooler, well, considerably modified cool air into the Rocky Mountain region there. Let's take a look at the upper levels. This is this morning's 250 millibar analysis. And things look to be pretty well dominated here by the polar front jet. So two main segments, one out there in the northern Rockies and the other in the Central Plains and the Great Lakes there. And the big subtropical ridge extending from about New Orleans up to the Carolinas. So that's putting Florida under some northerly flow there, with a trough offshore there. The center of the low this morning was located across western Colorado. So we have yet to really pull that upper level low out into the plains, so probably a couple more days at least of unsettled weather. And then once that passes, then we'll start building in the ridge, and we'll start seeing a warm-up and a drying trend, probably around the weekend. 700 millibar temperatures. They look to be pretty warm tonight, so this is probably the reason we're not seeing much storm activity. Looks like the 10 Celsius line has moved a little bit north. Maybe coming up pretty much through all of East Texas and up to Fort Worth and San Angelo there. And the 700 millibar temperatures are warmer. Okay, maybe I'm going too fast. Okay, let me slow down here. Okay. Temperatures at 700 millibars are warmer. I did it again. They're colder in Oklahoma and Kansas there. So we're looking at values of about 4 to 6. So we should be seeing weaker capping in that area. Even at Oklahoma City, they're down to 8. And then we've got 6. Surprising to see that in Midland. And then here's the moisture supply. We do have a low-level jet. coming up from central Texas up to southwestern Missouri. And looks like some pretty good dew points with that also. And I think we can see some evidence of the Pacific front coming in. Typically behind the dry line at 12Z, we do not see 30-knot winds out of the west there. So very likely that cold front has passed West Texas. And just using simple extrapolation, I think we can pretty much place that cold front off the Caprock. So I think we've got very definite justification for putting that front right there between Dallas and Amarillo. Okay, this is probably a good time to look at the satellite. Now, we did see some of it during the opening clip, but this is usually what we do when we go in and look at chat here. So we see a little bit of an upper level low up there in Nebraska, and unsettled conditions across Colorado. I think I still see some northerly flow, so let me go back and check out that 250 millibar chart, make sure there's not old data. Nope, that's 3rd at 12Z. It was out in western Colorado there. So anyway, the other system that's out ahead, further up the frontal boundary, remember we saw that low out here in the Panhandles yesterday, that has moved up the boundary, and we're seeing that now around southeast Nebraska, the junction of Iowa and Missouri there, and it's helping to produce some storms in that area right there. So we'll check that out on the surface chart, move up north, and there's our low. It's fairly weak. Looks like 29.73 inches of mercury. Lowest pressure just west of Falls City right there. And just out to the east, that's our warm front. So you can see the locally backed wind. Some of this is disrupted by the precip field, but I do see what looks like maybe some backing, at least with this station right here. And possibly these here, they may be reflecting a little bit of that. So the locally backed profile northeast of that low, helping to kind of lengthen the photograph in that region. Whereas down in the Kansas City area, it's a little more veered. Maybe not that station, but these two, they're showing winds out of the south-southwest. So that's shortening the bottom part of the photograph there. And then we'll just go ahead and give you a quick look at the storms starting around 4 p.m. So this is about 50 frames here. So you can check that out while I get caught up on the chat here. Okay, we got Robert Pleasant there, 76 in eastern Tennessee. David Lumbert, central Arkansas, reporting 66 there, beautiful mammatus clouds. Ron Chalfant, 63 in the San Bernardino Mountains. Carl Berghoff feeling a bit sick. Sorry to hear that. Electric Dog, 49 in northeast Illinois. Got Ryan Toomey's here. Mike Estwick, Burl H. Mike reporting the rain has finally stopped in Denver. Sue M reporting a lot of rain there in Indiana. Carl Berghoff mentioning the anniversary of the Moore tornado. Yeah, that was 19 years ago. That big Bridge Creek storm moved up by 44 and up into the Moore area. And also a lot of other tornadoes. Dover and Surreal, a couple of other places around central Oklahoma got some devastation there. Coffeyville, Kansas, 71 from Erica Baker. Mike Estwick got the instability book. Good to hear that. Brett Dean, 79, up there in Jersey. Thomas Copeland, very warm day in Virginia. Electric Dog asking about the drone. One of the motors went bad. When there's any kind of load applied to that motor on that drone, it starts vibrating pretty badly. So I just shut it down, and we're trying to figure out what to do about that. Robert Pleasant looking at wind grids there. We got Fun with Tech here. Willie Greenway there in Georgia. Christian Flock in Yukon. Got Jeff Krob here. Shirley Keast, 59 in Michigan. Taking spotter training there on the 17th. Jeff Krob also reporting some warmer weather in Maryland. Mike asking, how do you decide to go with a warm or a cold front on the chart? To decide that, what I look for is the general flow, the component of motion across the boundary looking at the wind field. So here you can see we have a westerly component there. Also, there's a westerly component to these winds. So that indicates the motion across the boundaries like that, which suggests that is a cold front. It is a good idea to verify that with the motion, because ultimately it comes down to which way the front is moving when you analyze it from chart to chart. But if you're just picking up a chart from scratch, you're going to look at that wind field there. Okay, well anyway, it's kind of a quiet evening here, so let's go into part 2 of our weathercast. Here's our water vapor imagery. So we do have that dry air just lurking up to the north from Kansas out to New Mexico and Arizona. And down here in Texas, we're still getting that feed of tropical moisture coming up from Mexico. And then out to the west, it appears we have another system that is pretty far out to the west, out towards Hawaii there. But it looks like a couple more days of good weather, and we do have that blocking high just off the coast of California there. So this system here, up off the coast of British Columbia, that's probably going to be headed towards Kansas there, or Canada. So let's look at the forecast, and we'll start with the Central Plains. So the high-resolution rapid refresh model. There's the initiation on those storms there near Des Moines. And those are going to continue pushing eastward, entering Illinois around midnight. And you can see they're dissipating. So not much left by the time they get to Chicago. And then down in Texas, it appears we have a couple of storm areas down there in Mexico. So we've got the possibility for an MCS tonight coming out of the Del Rio area, so probably upslope flow in Mexico helped to initiate these storms. And now we've got the cold pool helping to propagate those. And you can see they push across the hill country during the nighttime and then into the I-35 area, Waco and Dallas around dawn. And then those will be heading into East Texas by about midday tomorrow and into Austin and San Antonio there. But these should be fairly weak. In fact, I can give you the SKU-T profiles. So this is just south of Dallas. So the SKU-T is tomorrow. It does show that we do have some cape there. You can see a little bit of capping. The lifted condensation levels, it's going to be pretty low there with that high relative humidity, but the main problem we have here is on the photograph. We've got virtually no low-level shear. We do have some bulk shear present there, about 40 or 50 knots, so there should be some organization of these storms, but this is not a profile that is likely to produce any significant tornadoes there. And we'll take one more SKU-T east of Austin for midday tomorrow. And we're showing that cap there. Very weak, 0 to 1 kilometer shear, and looks like we've got some overcast, and that might be debris from the storms overnight down there in South Texas. And the significant tornado potential, you can see that down here. This is that algorithm, and the brown line is indicating bottom end EF0 or no tornadoes. And then it gives you the weighting factors. So CAPE and LCL, those are the big contributors. Storm meltability, very, very low. Bulk wind difference, also showing a bit low down there. So we're probably not going to see very much tomorrow. Let's look at the upper level pattern. So right now, we're seeing, okay, it looks like that low we had in Colorado has kind of split up, and we've got one low there in Nebraska, another down in southeastern Arizona. And then it looks like overnight, maybe some lift ahead of that shortwave there is going to move into Texas. That might help augment those storms that are coming to life in central Texas there. Meanwhile, up to the north, shortwave moving eastward into Illinois. So that'll probably help keep those storms going for a little while overnight. Then that main wave will be working its way out of Texas tomorrow evening, and then you can see that ridging building in. So a whole lot of subsident motion coming into the plains during the weekend. And then moving forward into the weekend, looks like ridging is going to be the story of the weekend, and probably some hot weather there in Denver, and up there in Amarillo, probably also pretty warm. And then our next wave is coming onto the west coast there. And it appears these initial waves are going to be moving northeast into the northern plains. So it'll probably be about Monday or Tuesday before those are a factor down south. So let's take a look and see what the GFS is showing. Oh yeah, the air masses. This is a good idea, the temperature anomaly. Because when we look at these GFS loops, it can be kind of hard to pick out the air masses because the highs and lows are, or I'm sorry, the high pressure areas, they tend to be pretty weak. So it can be very hard to follow them. I'm trying to figure out why this isn't updating. Okay. Let me try to reload this. All right, there we go. So we're talking about the weak pressure areas. Now, this particular high, it's fairly strong there over Colorado, so that's going to be pushing some cold air into the panhandle. But as we get into next week, what happened to the cold air mass? It's very hard to pick that out. You can kind of see it right there over Texas. There's kind of a weak high. But the temperature anomaly is a better way of tracking these air masses, so let's check that out. We'll run this forward, and you can see lots of cool air across the Four Corners area. Temperatures below normal in that region. And then into tomorrow, it appears the cool air moves into Texas. Then going into Saturday, now we find it down there in northern Mexico. And then going into Sunday, it's probably in that region right there, South Texas. So things are warming up once again in the Rockies and northern plains. And let's look for the next big change. Looks like that's coming from the north. This is around Thursday. Big Alberta Clipper coming south out of Canada. And that'll probably push a front down into the Central Plains by the following weekend. And it's actually looking pretty warm. About 8 to 9 days from now, around the 14th or 15th. You can see some very hot temperatures up in that area, but now we're getting a big change out in the western U.S. around the 16th, 17th. So it appears we're going to be kind of in a stagnant pattern until this gets here. And then this is probably a frontal system maybe something, I'd probably go even further north than that. So that's the setup there on the 16th. And then you can see that cold front working west to east, coming into the central plains there around the 18th. So I think really the day before that is going to be the big storm day. So maybe around here or even the day before. Because as this approaches, the upper level flow is going to start picking up. The upper level flow is probably going to be running something like that. And we'll probably see the jet stream start to enter the picture. And that'll really pick things up on the plains and increase the organization of the storms, starting with the high plains first. So we're talking about the 16th or 17th here. That'll be the next big change as far as thunderstorms go. And towards the very end, some very hot temperatures up there in Ontario and Quebec. Temperatures are going to be near 90 or maybe just over 90, all the way up to James Bay there. So if you want to try chasing up there around Hudson Bay, this is probably your big chance. So yeah, have fun with that. I don't know if there's any Allsup's stores up there, or even any roads, but yeah, if you want to be the first to get some tornado action in Hudson Bay, this is probably it. Okay, one last look at chat. Ryan Toomey is mentioning a major weather system approaching from the Atlantic. And I did see that earlier. I saw that little low over Cuba. Yeah, that's it right there. A little disturbance. I guess that's a little easterly, maybe kind of a cutoff low there. You can kind of see it drifting over the Bahamas. And yeah, that'll probably have some effect on Florida towards the weekend there, and then it just kind of dissipates and maybe gets absorbed by this next wave coming into the southeast U.S. Yeah, there it is opening up, and the next big trough will pick up that low there. Okay, yeah, good. Mr. Manlett mentioning the tornado warning in Iowa, so we'll check on that. One last look at that cell there. And you can see that notch right there. That's indicative of some severe potential. And so let's check out the velocity. Yeah, it looks kind of like a weak couplet right in that area. I don't know about anything down in this region. Let me set the storm motion. There we go. Okay, that'll filter out some of the forward motion. And I'm not sure I see much of anything on that boundary. Oh yeah, it would help to roll this forward. Let's do that. Okay, so I'm just kind of looking at the velocity field here. Yeah, it looks like that tornado warning has been dropped. So that's what's left of that storm. It looks like one more further up the line. And yeah, there's something right there that's going to be 5 miles northeast of Ferguson. And we'll see what that looked like earlier. Yep, you can see it coming together right there. And let me give you the reflectivity with a mark. And you can see that little notch in there. So there's probably a little updraft up out ahead of that cell right there. That shows you how these discontinuities in the line can really start evolving there. And then moving forward, that's where that little spin up is. Kind kind of buried there on that leading edge of that line. All right, let's see. That's probably going to be it for now. So hope you have a good evening, and hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow night. Take care and have a good evening.